I didn't hear it.
Oh no, I flipped.
Oh yeah.
Right now.
No, it is not.
Right now.
So if you're joining us live, you're not going to hear the fancy audio quality. It's going to be pretty crap. But we're going to start in a second. By the way, we have 0 viewers, so I'm talking to myself. There's no one else here is listening.
Jeremy
I mean, just to be thorough.
I'm about ready. You got ready?
You have to stop the racket.
You guys about ready? Let me turn off Spotify real quick.
Until Jason is making himself. You're only going to be on
I will always ourselves
Hello, Jordy.
because I'm just that cool.
Jordy, 1, 2, Jordy.
You can specify how my last name is.
All right, welcome everybody. We're going to start officially recording in like 5 seconds or less. We are actually streaming it live.
Everyone be quiet and serious.
Yeah,
It's time to get serious.
We're gonna
make us electrocute you.
There can't be any noise coming from the room. I'm just kidding. So we're gonna try to record it on this thing, and people are gonna be watching it on my computer. So I'm gonna try to turn the computer around without breaking things and point it to you guys, if that's okay. Does anybody have any problems with, like, it'll be streaming, but it's like kind of it's like this. The actual iTunes version is going to go from the audio version, so the audio is going to be like crap on this. You don't like this?
No.
Okay.
You cannot use my likeness in any way, shape, or form.
I will point it
Audio
that
version.
way, so we get kind of us. But I'll if I want to turn the computer around just to show everybody, just I'll give you a heads up so you can kind of like look the other way if you don't want your face kind of on the inner tubes.
You want your
Yes, exactly.
Would you like me to hold up an applause sign at a
Yes, that would be perfect.
Okay.
Actually, I will need your help in a second if that's okay. For the special treat.
No,
There's a special treat that's going to be coming here. And so feel free to like get up and help yourself for a special treat.
It's just a baby here.
I'm gonna like live the podcast again.
Just the whole story.
You are.
I'm just concerned that you're concerned about my wife.
Hey, ombudsman.
What?
Let's.
See, he's the ombudsman.
Ombudsman.
Wow.
So Ben, there really wasn't a question about whether or not I was the ombudsman.
All right, we have one viewer watching from the stream. That's good. So one viewer, we haven't started yet.
Hello,
but
viewer.
welcome.
Is it Matt's mom?
It probably
my
is.
mom. It's my
probably
mom.
Matt's mom.
Hi, Matt's mom.
Probably my wife.
Okay, we've done a sound check. We should be ready to go. If you've got a mic, just keep it close to your
Are we on
face.
video somewhere?
Hi, Mom.
We'll be in a second. We're actually streaming.
Where's
so-
the video?
It's at google.com/things.
Slash things.
You'll kill the Wi-Fi.
You'll kill the Wi-Fi. Ramsey, don't
All right.
kill the Wi-Fi.
I'm officially pushing the record button on this thing, which is what we're going to use for the iTunes version. And I think my audio is coming in. So I think, Jeff, you want to kick this thing off? All right, let's, hey, everybody, when we bring in the special treat, try to be like quietly, I mean, I know you're going to make some noise, but try to quietly do it. It's the surprise you're not supposed to know about. All right, ready? We're recording on all fronts.
And backs.
And back.
I'll turn it this way so we can kind of see everybody here. Except for one.
Except for the guy who just showed up on the screen.
All right.
I feel like I got like center focus here. I feel pretty good about this. All right,
Welcome to Loosely Couple Podcast, episode 23. We are live from PHP Tech in Rosemont. Is it Rosemont?
It is Rosemont.
Illinois. That's where we are. Chicago.
It's Chicago.
We are joined with a live audience.
Hey, clap it up! Clap it up! Clap it up!
Thank you, Ben Ramsey.
When does that house start?
And we also have, we're doing a mashup this time.
We
So
are?
we also have Sammy
Yes.
from PHP Roundtable.
Hello, I am Sammy K. Powers, host of the PHP Roundtable, who is just totally crashing the Loosely Coupled podcast right now.
Yes, he's totally crashing it.
We're happy to have you.
No,
I've seen Matt is crashing it, so
I'm
not
crashing it.
Sammy's
I'm the
fault.
one that doesn't belong here.
Yeah,
So.
he's the one that doesn't. And we are also joined by, I guess we call them panelists at this point.
Unapproved guests.
Whoa.
Squatters.
Squatters.
We have Jordy. Of the
Hello, Jordy.
Don't lie, Jordy. Good job, Jordy. And we also have Yitz, Code Rabbi, who's down at the end there. He has his own microphone, but he's not using it.
Also, he was
He's
clearly
sitting up
not
here, so
invited.
he is going to be on this podcast.
Oh, you heard that? It's official. Thank you.
I'm not sure.
You're not going to be on
Jordan-
camera at
Jordan is
all.
not sure, but the rest of us are. So okay, fantastic. All right, so we wanted to talk about a few things.
We
Sammy,
did.
What do we have?
We have a number of things, and the first thing I want to talk about is related to a treat that we're going to receive in a moment, but it's going to require me leaving and then coming back. So we're going to put a hold on that. But we pretty much all the stuff I had lined up,
That was weird.
the treat was supposed to be here already. So let's go in order here, starting with PHP Tech. What happened? You guys slept some?
A lot.
Yes?
A lot.
While you guys are talking about PHP Tech and open source things, I'm going to go get the treat.
Okay.
I'll be back.
So Sammy's going to get a treat.
Okay, Sammy's going to get a special treat.
So Jeff, what was the best talk that you saw since you've been here? Or what?
Mine, of course.
It's so funny. That's a good question.
And when I say best, I don't mean quality. I mean like for you, like what you were looking for in terms of content and stuff. But are you
Well,
laughing at me?
I'm just laughing at you because you're funny.
Aw.
So I think my favorite talk is I'm gonna have to go with. Derek's now shoving a camera in my face. I think my favorite talk thus far has been it's his keynotes,
Of
which I've
course.
seen before, but I do enjoy it, and I feel like I think I've seen it twice, maybe 3 times. But I feel like he does a good job of inspiring. It's like every time I listen to it, I hear, I get inspired to do something, and then I don't actually do it, but it does at least
So
inspire
how
me to do
inspired
something.
are you? I mean, come on.
Baby
steps,
possibly.
Baby steps, exactly.
What about you, Jordy? What was your favorite talk to give or receive?
There's a joke there.
Oh my God.
So to give, it was definitely the only talk I gave.
Oh, that's good.
Except my computer crashed, so it wasn't so
That was
fun.
fun. That was really fun.
Go Windows.
Your own
Thank-
shit was
thank you,
was
audience.
classic.
The best talk I saw. That's a good question.
No, I mean just for like what you were looking for, not necessarily asking you to throw anybody under the bus, but just
Can
what you
anyone
were
hear
looking
you,
for.
Matt? You don't have a microphone.
I'm just gonna talk. I'm gonna talk. And
Nobody's listening to that anyway.
Just
no one's.
that's fine.
You'd be better off.
Yeah.
There you go. Use that one.
I don't feel like I should contribute to this discussion.
Okay,
Yes, but
that's fine.
later maybe.
Okay. So Jordy didn't like any of the talks. I'm just teasing you.
All right. So next point, I think, is
Matt, what is your favorite talk that you've seen?
Favorite talk that I saw? That's a good question. I think my favorite talk in terms of the topic was the WebSockets talk yesterday, because I didn't actually go to any talks today. So yeah, it's something I've been interested in for a little while, and I've seen a couple talks at other conferences on the topic, and it was like standing room only. It was like really packed, and so I was sitting basically on someone's lap, which I'm sure they appreciated. And yeah, I just got a lot of. That's one of those things, motivation-wise, something I really wanted to kind of get into and start to learn more about, and hopefully I remember everything tomorrow so I can go back to work on Monday and start implementing it. We're gonna get the Yitz here. Yitz, what was your favorite talk?
That would imply that I attended any talk.
Yitz did not attend any talks.
That's a controversial.
Yeah,
you
that's
gave
a
one.
party foul.
I gave 2.
You gave 2.
Well,
Which
Jeff
one was
helped.
your favorite?
Which was the favorite that you gave?
Which was the favorite I gave? Interestingly, I enjoyed the tutorial more than the keynote. It's more interactive and it's different every time.
Talk about your tutorial, because that one was fun. Did you have any help?
I did. I had, yeah.
Wow.
Staying relevant here, okay. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about your tutorial. What was your tutorial?
So tutorial wax on, wax off, Code Kata Dojo, where we first make the case for deliberate practice and Code Katas for software developers to grow their skills. And then we do a series of katas based on Conway's Game of Life with various constraints in the second and third katas. Retrospectives, save it for the retro.
Save it for the retro.
Retrospectives after each kata, and then some discussion at the end.
Okay.
And,
Yeah.
And did you have any help? That was the question. That was asked.
I as a matter of fact, I had help. Your co-host
My
made the
co-host.
tutorial.
Yes,
That's-
Wow.
yeah, your
My
your
co-host.
co-host.
assistant, I guess.
My assistant, my secretary made the.
I borrowed your assistant basically for the tutorial. Yeah.
So
Jordan
that
was there?
So that particular talk, or that particular tutorial, I think is interesting just because it's talking about the idea of deliberate practice, and it's something that. So I've helped him twice with this particular tutorial, and at first everyone in the room is looking at you like you're totally nuts when you explain this very complicated concept to go through. And you're saying you have 45 minutes to do this, and you're probably not going to finish it. It's unrealistic to think that you could. But we want you to try anyway. We want you to just try starting going through the problem. And the first iteration, or the first time through it, people literally look at you like you've lost your mind. This is the worst thing I've ever attended. And then you see, as the day progresses, you see that people are starting to understand why you are doing it, why you are repeating things, why you are throwing it away every time. And I think it's an interesting experience. So if you ever get a chance to attend it, you should.
Okay, so Sammy stepped out and he basically did all the preparation for this show.
Yes, he has our show notes, which is awesome.
But so he has a couple of talks here that he had highlighted. So we're just going to speak for him.
Yes, we're going to tell you what Sammy enjoyed.
We're going to tell you what Sammy enjoyed here.
The surprise.
Oh, there he is. He's got a towel. Surprise!
And why wouldn't you be having a towel? Oh,
It's-
it's cake.
it's- So, Sammy, would you like to introduce your surprise here?
Oh, uh-oh. There's some
It's,
problems.
it's more Kraken. Yay!
There we go. So, what were you guys talking about just now?
We were talking about you and how we were
Conferences.
just about to speak for you.
Specifically.
Specifically, that's an excellent transition into PSR 7, which got approved.
Because they start with a P.
Both start with a P.
That's right.
Yeah, give it up for PSR 7.
Tonight's episode is sponsored by the letter P.
The letter P.
Yes, Derek.
In a few words, can you actually explain what PSR 7 is?
That
We'll
we are
get
actually
there.
going to get to that. Yes, thank you very
Okay.
much. We are going to explain what PSR 7 is. Before we do, though, there are a couple of people who were kind of big on the project. One is actually right here, Bo Simonson. Hello, Bo. Welcome.
Oh!
Also Larry Garfield from Chicago had a lot of work did stuff with it. Yeah, Chicago. A bunch of other people, MC Dowling, and of course Matthew Weir-Finney, who sent out the tweet that it got approved, and it was very exciting. And he made a little comment on one of his tweets that, hey, PHP Tech, you should have a PSR 7 cake to celebrate the PSR 7 getting approved. So, without further ado, I'm gonna mess up this cake if I don't drop this mic.
Here, I'll hold your mic for you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Long story short, there's a cake.
So for the people watching at home,
I feel like Bo should hold the cake.
the cake
Bo, get up there. Hold
says-
the cake. Bo's gonna hold the cake.
on it, PSR 7 cake contains 0 figs.
Oh, put your fucking fingers in there. Pass the cake. Here.
So,
No, dude, you gotta hold the cake.
All right, I'll hold it.
Before
There
it
you
gets
go.
dropped by someone else.
Good call. Good call. So Bo is taking a picture with the cake.
hit you in the face.
It's like a birthday cake.
Yeah, so if you're not following along at home, right now we have Bo and
You got
Sammy
it?
holding a
I got
giant
it.
cake.
All right.
So I'm gonna put the cake over here, and you guys are all welcome to cut it yourselves, put it on a plate, and eat it.
Obviously, people listening after the fact, you're not going to get anything.
Yeah, if you're listening at home, you're not getting any cake. So there
I'm
you go.
listening at home.
Well, then no cake for you, sir.
So who would like to explain PSR 7?
We'd like to hear Matt's
So PSR 7 is alright, it's the HTTP request response PSR, right? It's kind of tying the whole rug together. Jordy's going to talk about it some here.
Jordy.
I think you did a pretty good job of summing it up. Oh, well, request response and
and
that's about it.
and to you.
No, it's a way I think to like drop the dependency on the globals, like the super globals in PHP, and having a way more interoperable request and response objects.
I feel like that's what I said.
Yeah, exactly. with less work. So, yeah.
Yeah, so PSR7, have some cake.
Absolutely. And so far, no one's cut into it yet.
Yeah, so there's cake there. And
Feel free to cut into it and eat some.
That's a PhD Tech 2009.
So we have
I was there.
We have a plug from the audience.
There we go. There we go. So now, Sammy, before you walked out to bring us all cake, we were talking about our favorite talks from the conference.
Oh,
and we
yes.
kinda
Thank you for
talked
that
about
excellent transition.
So, for you, you're the only one that kind of hasn't gone yet.
Okay. Well, I actually
What do you think? I see you have a couple.
I feel like I didn't contribute enough before to this discussion.
Yeah, because you totally.
No, because I
squelched on the
wasn't
question.
ready. I wasn't ready for that question.
Okay, so
but
what was yours?
Actually, I think Ilya's talk was very interesting. It contained tons of information about security and like logging as well. It was really quite good.
Okay.
I know he posted the slides on his blog, I think, so
Yeah.
definitely worth checking out.
Okay.
Yeah, Sammy,
Good,
like,
good. We
feel
got a
free.
straight answer out of you.
Yeah, I know. I'm getting there. Like, I'm not used to this whole podcast business.
I know. We're gonna make you all uncomfortable tonight here.
So you mentioned Ilya, right?
Yeah.
He had a great talk about security, and the thing that I got out of it was he mentioned that something about like on your model when you store stuff into persistent storage, you should log the change, and also that I had it written down here. Now I'm losing it. Oh, here it is. To validate the model to validate your data at the kind of closer to your as close to, as possible to where you're storing it, which is kind of cool. I also got a lot out of Gemma's Ansible.
Gemma.
Yeah, Gemma.
Is Gemma here? No.
She was talking about refactoring spaghetti code and basically testing spaghetti code. So the key out of that was to take small steps. I think I tend to like refactor and try to think, oh, it could be much better by doing it this way and this way and this way, and have to start refactoring all over the place. So it's kind of cool when you're working with a legacy code base. Derek Reethans, who is right in front of me taking pictures
Who
and
is snapping pictures of us?
snapping pictures.
Rethans.
Rethans. I'm saying
Rethans?
everybody's name wrong.
You pronounce it Rethans.
Rethans. Thank you, Derek. He taught me that debugging was a lot more than just var dump. So he's doing some great picture work right now. He's also a photographer. And of course, Jordy, I learned from you that the carrot is the recommended version control operand.
That's all you got from that talk.
I was using the tilde like crazy.
We also got that Windows sucks.
Oh, whoa.
But so
I didn't say that. I said go Windows.
what was
No, we weren't
the
listening to you.
I'm being scolded.
what is the difference between, or why is it better to use the caret over the tilde in the browser?
That's not what we call.
It's like that's very hard to explain with audio only. I feel like it's such a minor difference.
Go
But
see
it's
Jordy's
like
talk.
if you define a no, if you define a like very specific version constraint, like let's say 1 or 2 or 3, then with the tilde you'll be blocked to like between 1 or 2 or 3 and 1.3. With the caret you can go up to 2.0. So it's better because it goes all the way up following same road.
So even if you define 1.0.0 with a caret, it'll bring it all the way up to 2.0.
And if you
with
define
less than
1.2, if you define 1.2 with the caret, it'll also go up to 2.0.
Yeah.
Whereas if you do it with the tilde, it'll only go up to
Well, with the tilde, it
1.2
depends
down.
on how many digits you define.
right.
Or with the caret, it's like always following semantic version.
Okay.
Maybe
Oh,
for-
that's the key. All right.
Yeah.
If you're working with packages that follow semantic versioning, use the caret.
Which you should.
Okay.
Follow,
That's
like
the
packages
key.
that don't follow semantic versioning, you shouldn't work with them.
Okay.
Just complain, like
We're going to talk about it later, but the Facebook PHP SDK for the longest time did not follow Semver until recently, and that was one of the problems we were having. Is that the breaking changes were happening in the middle number, the big breaking changes where you're supposed to have the features added.
And that's where you
For
just
Semver.
bitch on Twitter, right?
no, that's not my job.
That's what I do.
Yeah, there you go.
Speaking
No,
of
not
tilde,
you specifically, but just
wasn't
people
that
No, in
Bo's
general, yeah.
contribution to Composer?
Excuse
Bo
me?
Simonson? Was that your contribution to Composer, the tilde operator?
It's a, yeah.
Yeah. So maybe
Go,
it's the
Bo.
Show.
Go, Bo.
Bo Show.
We're gonna have to get you up here, Bo.
The carrots and the tilde.
I didn't do the carrots.
Oh, just the tilde. Oh, perfect.
Orange is the new black, right?
Yeah. So it was great, and yeah, we should
Okay.
talk
All right.
about anything else with tech before we move on to open source.
Yeah. So, anything else about tech that you wanna
Tech.
throw into people's ear holes? No.
All right. Well, since we're talking about Composer and versioning and stuff like that, I wanted to bring up a specific scenario, specifically aimed at Mr. Jordy here, about renaming a repo. And I feel like some people run into this when they've developed a project under their own namespace, and then it gets really popular, and then they want to move it to the name of the project / the name of the project or something. Or they just kind of, in oversight, rename the repo very poorly and put a version number in it or something. What do you do when you want to rename that in GitHub, and then how does that affect packages, and how does that affect everybody who's installing it, pointing it to your old repo name?
Okay, so that's a lot of questions.
How do you do it?
Yeah.
Stop this.
I'll try to sum it up. If I don't answer everything, just get back to me.
Sure.
So a few things like renaming repos, like there is no direct correlation between the package name and the repo name on GitHub. Although some people seem to believe that, that's just not true. So if you rename the repo on GitHub, you can just update the URL on packages. That's fine. Like that almost won't break anything, let's say. The other part is if you want to change the package name, like change the vendor, or if you have like the version number in the package name, which is an odd idea, because usually you have the name and the version. So if you put the version and the name, you're in trouble. And as you mentioned, yeah, the Facebook guys did that. That was, in retrospect, not a good idea. And back then was also not a good idea, but it so happens that they did it.
And the reasons they did it was actually for, it was good reasons at the time, but just the actual, what they named it to with the version number in it was the oversight.
What they wanted, I guess, was another package name. But putting a number in it is just not a very smart thing. That's it. Like, I mean, it's not forward thinking, right? It's okay, but whatever. That's history. It's done.
So how do we
now
fix
that
that?
we're there, yeah, how do you fix it? I guess you would have to rename the package. So that's like change the package name in the Composer JSON, submit it again on packages. Then you have like two packages pointing to the same repository with two different names. And then what you can do is go on the old one with like Facebook version 2 something, and mark that as being abandoned. And when you do that, you can say abandoned and point to the new package name. And that will notify anyone using that package. When next time they update, they'll get a notification saying package you're using has been like abandoned. You should try to use that one instead. So that will guide people to slowly migrate to the new name.
I feel like there should be documentation or a talk or something. Yeah.
Well, there's a big button on the website. So.
Okay. What does it say?
It says abandoned.
That's all the documentation you
That's all
need.
you need. That's all you need.
If that's not clear enough, then we do accept pull requests. No, we can always do better with documentation.
Well, I was actually suggesting that we get Sammy to research it since he's interested in this.
Yeah.
Sure. I'm down.
So you heard it.
I'll just get on Google and Google it. That's what I'll do.
Is that what you do on Google?
Yeah.
We're not taking questions,
We have a
man.
question.
We have a question from the audience.
We'll take questions from anyone who's not named Ben Ramsey.
But Ben Ramsey did have a question.
Is anyone not named
Is this
that?
because of my question last night at the,
That wasn't a question, that was a statement.
It was a statement.
fuck everybody. It was a story.
Oh, so we're not going to answer Ben's question then?
No.
Okay, Ben,
Oh.
what's your question, Ben? Come on.
It wasn't a question. He just said fuck everything.
What is
Fuck everyone.
Body.
We're good.
What's your question?
Oh.
Is that your question?
So I need to stop there. All right.
Thank you.
So I have a package.
Thank you.
This is more of a statement than a question.
That's
I don't like where this is going.
It's more of a statement than a question.
nice package.
Actually, it's more of a story than a question.
Ben's gonna talk about his package.
Tell us about your package, Ben.
I don't actually know what I was going to ask about.
You just wanted to hold the mic.
Okay, Jordy, back to you.
Thank you, Ben.
So
Excellent
I
question.
would say yes.
Jordy, you can come on anytime.
Yeah, the little mistake I shouldn't have said that.
So, what do? If we're going to rename a repo in GitHub, there's a 301 redirect feature coming soon, right? You have to use a special header in order to get this. Yeah, you can send a special header, but to say that you want this the beta version or whatever, and it'll redirect 301 redirect your repo if you rename it. It's a new feature.
Actually, that's the thing. I recently updated a package in Packagist. Here.
That's going to be our audience mic there.
So I had a recent change to a package I had. It's my UUID library. It was called Rumsa UUID, which Rumsa, for the short story is that Rumsa means wild garlic in Manx, which is
Of course it does.
Only questions, no stories.
from the Old Norse Rumsa. All right.
Of course
So,
it does.
Of course it
Is
does.
this important to your question?
No. My package was called Rumsa UUID. And through a long series of events of people getting really irritated with the package name,
Because it had like 3 of the same letter in a row.
whatever, I changed it to Ramsey. But the URL in GitHub did not change. So I marked it as abandoned and created a new package in Packagist and changed my composer.json to have a new package name. But every single time I update it, it updates both of them, and which is okay actually. I don't really have a problem with that. But people are bitching at me now about the old package getting updated when they don't think it should be getting updated because it's marked as abandoned.
Question.
Is that your question?
I'm not sure what you're
It's
saying.
marked as abandoned. Wait, how do I go up on the end of a
Abandoned?
Abandoned?
There we go.
Okay, so you can send a pull request if you want.
Sure.
Changing that so that abandoned packages just don't update anymore. Why
That's
not?
basically it, though,
No, I
right?
mean, it's a simple thing.
That's it.
To do, but I don't really see why people should get mad about this. I mean, it's not that problematic, I feel, but
Doesn't that actually help people? Because
yeah, I would think it's actually a good thing.
Actually, it doesn't hurt anyone at all.
it seems like it would actually help.
But the namespace has changed too in the next version. So it's a little confusing.
Okay, so what you're saying is like you made a big mess, and you blame like.
I do not
Oh my
blame
goodness.
anyone.
Okay.
You should name your projects better from the get-go, I think is what the point of it is.
I will now name my projects M. Frost from now on.
Make me famous, baby.
Well, one of the hardest things to do in programming is to name things. So I feel like we should give Ben a little slack.
No, you can slack. You can slack.
The only person who was on my side was Matthew Wirafini. He was like, keep the Rumsa name. But no one else.
By the way, Larry, you were mentioned earlier. Larry Garfield just walked in. We had a PSR7 cake that may still say PSR7. Oh, nice.
Did you get some cake, though? Yeah, go eat some cake. Have your cake. You can get
I mean that's why he showed up.
He just showed up for the cake.
Yeah.
You heard there was cake.
Cake is a lie.
We were told there was going to be punch and pie.
Cake PHP.
Cake PHP, that's what I said. That's
This
how we're
cake
going to
PHP.
deliver it to people at home.
Done it.
Nice.
All right.
That's a big knife.
Now that's a knife.
I would watch out for her.
Have that knife.
It magically appears.
All right. So where are we going next?
Puerto Rican Rage. There are lots of really big projects.
Puerto Rican Rage.
Including PHP itself.
Yes, there are lots of big projects.
There are lots
Large
of big
projects.
projects.
Adamantium.
One of the problems with a big project in PHP's community is the fact that in order to contribute to it, it's a little hard to get started when a lot of the knowledge is sort of tribal knowledge, right? It's the undocumented, how do I contribute? You really can't contribute unless you really know somebody one-on-one. Like if you come to an event like this, you can figure it out. But like somebody just kind of like sitting at their computer, by themselves is probably not going to figure it out. What you could say is, you could argue that it's like, oh, that's a good thing. So it forces people to get involved in the community. And PHP is huge on community, but it still kind of pushes all of that. It pushes all what's the proper word here? It pushes all of the stress on the community to learn how to do things. So, what are y'all? What is your thoughts on what can be done? Should there be anything done with tribal knowledge in PHP's big projects, including PHP Core?
I'll jump in here. So I think what I've started to see more of in these open source libraries and projects is actual contribution documents, right? To kind of give you a little bit of background on should I go closer? Okay, that better? All right, good. We're good. We're good. I've done this before. Like contribution documents as far as, what you need to do to kind of get the repo set up on your end, the branching model that the project is using. And I know a lot of projects don't have those, but I do see them with some newer ones coming up. And just kind of giving people instructions on how to get involved, how to contribute code, how to contribute features and things like that to the project. So, I mean, I guess for me, what I would like to see is more of those documents, more of the repos that don't have them, start to add them, start to kind of lay out those steps in, almost, it's basically a secondary README is basically what it is. But yeah, I think for me, when I go to a project and there's not that clear, like, how do I contribute? How do I, contribute code back to this project? For me, it's kind of like, all right, well, I'm probably going to do something wrong, so I'll just not contribute to this project. I'll look for a different one. What do you think, Jeff?
Yeah. So tribal knowledge isn't something that I think is unique to large PHP projects or any bigger project in general. Like you get this everywhere you go, even your day job. Like you're going to run into situations where you're trying to work on something, or you're new to something, and there's just no documentation. So you get that person who's like, oh yeah, I remember this time when I did that. And I think one of the best ways to get some of that going is to have someone, when they're new, just to kind of document what they go through and just write down, here's the problems I ran into, and then let someone who is more experienced in it and has the knowledge that they're wanting to share, then look at that and say, okay, how can I improve the documentation around this? So this is something I'm actually doing right now on my team. We've had a couple of new developers come in over the past few months, and there's a lot of things that we found that we take for granted, like knowledge that I know that if I'm filing a ticket on like a certain area of the application and it's somebody's, it's their baby or they're used to working in it, I know I don't have to fill in all the backstory. I don't have to make as much information as to how you set up things. But when there's someone who's brand new to a project, they have to know, like you have to hold their hand through it. So I think a good way to do that is and what I'm trying to follow is, anytime a question comes up that's like, I didn't get how to set up the data for that, I write that down and use that as that becomes a chore for me to do later that says, document how to do this process, or document where this goes, or go to that link. And I think that's the best way to get those documents going, is not sit down as someone who's a current contributor and say, I'm going to write this README in this contributing document, but listen to problems or questions that people ask, whether they're filing issues or pinging you at IRC or whatever, and use that as use that to file issues and say, we need to document this particular area because this is an actual problem that people run into, instead of, this is what my experience says I should document. Because if you are someone who's been working on something for a long time, there's no way that you can understand the perspective of someone who's brand new to it. You're not gonna document it in a way that's accessible to someone who's new. So that's my advice.
So we disagree a little there, huh?
We disagree a lot.
Touche.
Jordy, how much travel knowledge is there specifically in Composer? Is there good documentation on getting? To put you on the spot here. Is there good documentation on contributing, or because I haven't actually looked at the source or anything? So how would I get started if I didn't know you specifically?
I don't think there's a whole lot of documentation of. I mean, we do have two things. We have this the contributing.md file, which explains like here's how to do source checkout and install and then like do your patch and send it. It's fairly limited, I guess. Another thing I added last week, I believe, or like a couple of weeks back, is this contributor covenant, which is it's like a code of conduct for open source projects. So just saying like, we're at least a respectful environment, and like your patch might not be the best thing ever, like it's the first thing, but we'll answer in a respectable manner, and no matter who sends what, like we won't just bite your head off. Essentially, that's like the short version, right? No, but I mean, I think it's important actually, because
absolutely,
like from conferences, what I got was that most people not contributing is usually they just don't contribute due to fear of various things, but it's like being too shy or I don't know what. And so like if we can bring down that barrier a little bit, it's probably a good thing.
So if I understand you right, what you're saying is if people want to contribute to Composer, you're not going to inflict violence upon them? Is that what you're saying?
That's the
gist of the
document.
gist,
I guess, but it's, I mean, in a way, it might sound silly, but some projects will actually punch you in the face if you contribute something on its own.
Absolutely, I've seen that.
So it's, it sounds silly, but it's actually worth mentioning.
Absolutely, and I feel like that's a good kind of.
Which is really sad.
Absolutely. It's a good call for all open source maintainers to say, if somebody submits to you like this ridiculous pull request, to not just like, shoot them down and be like, you're an idiot, who are you, what are you doing? Just be like, oh, thank you for the contribution. I always say thank you, no matter what it is, even if it's just like, there must have been a mistake. You must have accidentally PR'd by removing everything. But I think, thank you for the contribution, but this doesn't follow this model because of X, Y, and Z. And I actually spend a lot of time like explaining why I'm not pulling this in. And say, I'd love for you to submit a different one if you submit an issue and propose an idea or something like that, to really encourage the open source community. Because if their first experience is like, they could submit a pull request and then they're denied, and you're like, oh, you're stupid. This is stupid. Why did you even do this? I can't believe it. Why aren't they going to do it again? I don't think they would.
Yeah, they probably won't do it on your project, but if it's their first contribution ever, they actually might like just turn off and never come back to open source at all.
Exactly.
Yeah,
that really sucks.
That's good advice in general, right? Like if you ever get an email or something and you feel like you want to respond extremely negatively, I think someone told me before, they're like, if you ever feel like you're about to respond in a negative manner to something, just go take a walk, go get a coffee, go drink a glass of water or something. Just take a little bit of time to come back to it and then read what you wrote, and you're probably going to look at it a different way because you're not in that immediate reactionary time.
Yes.
I think that's critical for open source maintainers, critical for managers, critical for everyone at your company to just think about like, how are you communicating with everyone else? And I think they touched on this in the podcast last night that shall not be named. But
you mean Dev Hell?
There was a podcast last night?
Yeah, Dev Null or something like that.
Dev Null, that's what it is.
Dev Null, I think. Yeah, I've heard of that, I think.
But I think they were talking about the whole idea of how the hard skills, like the technical skills, are great, but if you can't communicate, you can't interact with people well, no one is going to, it's not going to be an enjoyable time for you and your coworkers, or your teammates, your project leaders, whatever you want to call them. So that is an important thing to learn how to do, is take your reaction and don't put it into words immediately if you are feeling frustrated with something or negatively towards it.
Absolutely, and that's such great advice. I would even recommend putting smiley faces on something that you would normally be angry with. I've done this a lot with client work. If they send me something that frustrates me, I'll send an email frustrated, but I'll always append it with a smiley face, and that just changes the intonation completely. It's ridiculous. But smiley face. I'm seriously. Like, I know it's kind of silly, but smiley faces work.
No.
On online communication, online communication is missing so much of the actual communication. You're just saying the words, and there's so many ways to say things. I'm a linguist. I can say this. So adding a smiley faces puts a lot more communication into what you're saying. So add smiley faces to everything. Emoticons, completely.
Every
Larry-
commit message you make for the next year should have smiley face in it. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I do it to the point to where it's crazy.
I used to
It's
make
okay,
smiley faces.
In your you use smiley faces, Derek?
Everywhere. What's the question
You
again?
used smiley faces? Oh, I was just trying to get you on the mic.
That didn't work.
No, it didn't work.
No, couldn't hear you.
Okay, I think we have a question.
Larry Garfield.
I want to reiterate on that point, personal story. I've been involved in Drupal for nearly a decade now. I've been involved in Drupal for nearly a decade now. And
Go Larry!
Hashtag humble brag.
well, my very first patch against Drupal core, it was a simple patch, and it actually went in on its first version, which doesn't happen anymore in Drupal, but at the time it did happen. And the first interaction I had with Therese Boycard, our project lead, was him committing the patch and saying thank you in the issue queue. And it sounds corny to say, but there I was, this little newbie, and the project lead is saying thank you to me. Oh my God!
Yes.
It really does matter. It really does help. And with regards to the project size, but I think people who are public figures, who are heads of larger projects, it matters even more for them to have that just little pieces of encouragement here and there, saying thank you, saying please, giving that just little bit of extra politeness, a little bit of extra gratitude goes a huge way. And it's something I try to do in the side projects I maintain, because I know what that did for me when I was just getting started. So
Absolutely.
I just want to
That's actually
reiterate
nice.
that part for everybody.
Especially if your middle name is an expletive, you need to make sure to say thank you to everybody.
Yes, especially that.
So Jordy, how's it going?
I don't know.
So,
I don't know what's going on.
so without giving too much insight into your
Way too
keynote,
much
I know there's
stuff,
a lot of shenanigans going on in the audience right now. If you're listening in your car and you're wondering why there's a lot of silences,
You can call us out, that's true.
There's trouble right here.
I blame you.
What's that smell?
I blame Code Rabbi. 2 years in a row.
Yitz is on the panel, but not officially on the panel, but officially on the
No.
I'm
panel.
unofficially on the panel. I am crashing
just like
the
figurative.
PHP Roundtable, crashing the Loosely Coupled podcast.
There's a lot of
It's just
crashing.
crashing the.
It's not,
just
actually,
explain
yeah.
it is crashing the round table, which is crashing loosely coupled. So it's a recursion going on. Waterfall.
So I have a just small question for you, by the way. Most of the PHP podcasts, they're always like 2 hosts. So what happened?
There's hey, you know what? The round table is all about a discussion, and I'm the idiot at the table. I'm the one who's asking the questions. I don't actually try to be an expert on anything. So thank you. Actually, the podcast could be the idiot at the table. I think is probably the more appropriate name.
That's
But I wanted, I'm very new to this community. I just started getting involved about tech last year. And I realized how awesome it was, and there was so much to learn. I was like, well, why don't I just learn in front of people? So I decided I would broadcast it. That's what the PHP Roundtable is all about. It's just me learning in front of people.
That's
So-
cool.
Right on.
So all y'all are smarter than me is what I'm saying.
You work for Facebook.
I do not work for Facebook. Speaking of Composer, how does well? So I didn't want to actually.
We're gonna
provide
get
too
dark here, right?
Too many. No. Oh no. I'm not going to talk about dark things. But you are going to have a keynote about behind the scenes of managing a big open source project. But Composer is pretty big. I mean, it's all right, right? It's okay. But if you, what was it like behind a package that is used by pretty much every PHP? I don't want to say every PHP developer because there's still quite a few that don't use it, but every PHP developer should be using. What is it like? Emotionally even. I mean, try to do something that's not in your slides tomorrow.
Well,
It means you can't get to
Yeah, I feel like it's the second night in a row where I'm basically asked to spoil everything about my keynote. I don't know. I really can't answer that. If you want me to not say anything, I will say tomorrow.
Tune in tomorrow.
Tune in tomorrow. There's a keynote going on. With Jordy talking about managing behind the scenes of the composer.
I guess 2 seconds rundown is a lot of pain in a way, but it's also a lot of fun. So it's it's a balancing act, and I'm putting cake all over the mic. And so it's just a cable. It's fine.
It's BSR7 cake. It's okay.
Yeah,
it's got streams and stuff.
So we had a composer cake, for example, last year, which that was a nice touch. So sometimes you get nice things like that, or you get contributions that's cool, and but you get a lot of haters and stuff like that, which tend to not be such happy situations.
Well, how do you deal with haters?
Haters gonna hate, man.
Yeah, as an open source maintainer, you do get negative feedback. What is your response, and how do you deal with the internal stress that causes you?
So I just had a bad idea for an answer, which I'm not gonna say.
We're all friends here.
Yeah. No, I hear it's being recorded, so. No. So, the haters, I think you have a few different types of haters. Some are just angry, insults, bam, 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 but there's no real point. So that's fine. That doesn't hurt so much because it's just silly people. It's whatever. Just move on, ignore, fine.
Get ignored.
Yeah. I wish that was possible. No, I think the main issue is more people that do have a point, but that don't communicate it in a nice way. They just come and bash you in your face with realities that hurt, and you go, yeah. And that's when it gets really painful. So, there is no magic way to handle it. I guess you just have to bite the bullet and try to answer nicely so it stays a healthy discussion instead of devolving into just a massive flame war.
Yes.
That would be the only advice I have.
And in order to do that nicely, you just add emoticons, right? Add a smiley face to every sentence, and it'll be communicated nicely.
Yeah.
No, but you have an excellent point there. It's some people will come and attack something, and they make it a personal attack. They really are jerks about it. But they might have a good point,
always,
right?
Though. I think the other side to that is when people make it just an attack on the project.
Exactly.
They don't make it personal, but you take it personally because it's your baby and so on. And so it's hard not to take something personally.
Absolutely, to separate yourself from the code, and it's not making it such an emotional attachment.
Exactly.
But I feel like there are some people that even have a valid point and do it in a really negative way, in a really kind of personal attack way, but they still have a really good valid point. So it's kind of hard to kind of separate those two. So any negativity that comes to the project, I think maybe we should use Jeff's advice and step away, maybe sit on it for a day, let it think about it and be like, is this a valid point they're making? And just wish that they had used more emoticons when they were expressing it. Smiley faces.
Can we just
Derek Resson is here taking pictures of everybody in a very intimate way.
That's enough pictures.
No,
Let's be honest. It's enough pictures. Yeah. The last one.
Speaking of people that are young and on our lawn, whippersnappers is the correct term, / Stack Overflow driven development. Man, I am horrible at these transitions.
Yeah, that's all right. You'll
topic,
get it. You'll get it. You're
not notes. I'll figure it out one day.
So
tell me what. Okay, so I don't know if
this is Matt's segment.
This
is
Matt's
my segment. So we did some
whippersnappers on my lawn.
Stack Overflow driven
development.
development.
Yeah, so
What is
I
Stack?
actually had a really interesting conversation with Michelangelo last night. We kind of talked about this, and where's he at? Oh, there he is.
Michelangelo's in the
There he
audience
is.
too.
Yep.
Dragon B on
Yep.
Twitter.
And so we had kind of talked about this, and actually I have to give credit to Michelangelo for that term, Stack Overflow driven development, or Stack Overflow generation, I think is what you referred to it as, lovingly. So So we talked about the way that we kind of solve problems, and I don't know if there's necessarily an age cutoff, but I've noticed with people that are younger than myself, there tends to be this what? Come on, Ben. Come on, Ben. Stay with me here.
You're not that young.
Where are you going with this?
So no, it's about problem solving and how people solve problems. And basically, the main idea around it is that, when I was in my early 20s, late teens, when I started really getting into the kind of web dev world, the resources that exist today didn't exist back then, right? And when we had issues, when we had problems, things we had to debug, we really had to dig into the source code and figure out what the actual problem was. And I think what we kind of see today is, in addition to lots of whippersnappers on our lawn, is, with
There's a spray
the
for that.
what's that?
There's a spray for that.
There's a spray for
Put it
that.
on your garden hose.
I want to.
Code Rabbi's
Can I get the spray?
recommending
Yeah,
pesticide.
Takes care of all
Pesticide.
the whippersnappers in your lawn. Yeah.
No, but you have things like Stack Overflow and all these new resources for, I can't get this one specific problem to work, so I'll just go to Stack Overflow and find it and then implement that. And what I think you see happening a little bit, it's not to disparage anyone, it's just a different time, different culture, different resources at our disposal. Mike, should I get closer? Okay. Is that you you kind of lose some of that curiosity about how things work, and you see these, and I don't want to like lump everyone in together, because there are young people that will do it kind of the old school way, but you see a lot of copy and paste Stack Overflow solutions, and what happens is the people that are giving these solutions don't really understand what the problem is or what the solution is and if it fixes it and why it fixes it. And I don't know. I mean,
So what's wrong with that? Like, everybody's in a different stage of their
sure,
understanding.
and it's
so
not, and again, it's
cut
not
and
to
paste
disparage
it. I've been
anyone, but it's more just like if you're an open source maintainer, right? For example, and somebody's basically copy pasting a Stack Overflow solution into your project, it's important that you know, right, what that solution is, what impact that solution may have on the rest of your project. And I think, ultimately with all the stuff, with open source, with code contributions and things like that, the ultimate goal is to help people understand the project better, right? The more thoroughly people understand the project, the more they can contribute, the more we can bring down the bus factor, which is a term we didn't quite use yet, but I know it came up in your talk. Bus factor.
So
I
by
was there.
By bus
That
factor,
was a
you
good
mean like
transition.
So
something-
by bus factor, I mean if Jordy gets hit by a bus, what happens
Yeah.
to composer?
or
So
just
what-
in general.
What you mean is you just completely got lost with your point.
I
You
don't
didn't get
understand.
I feel like I was right on point.
No, so you
I
tried
got
to make a
lost.
transition because
Well, I saw it on the thing. I have the screen right here, so I can see bus
There are
factor
show
on
notes.
the screen.
I can see it too.
By bus factor, Matt is referring to the idea that if a maintainer of any software gets hit by a bus, what happens to the software?
Which hopefully never happens. Like, I feel like we should say that. Like,
Well, and an example of this when I first started my my current position, there were 3 engineers, and we took a trip to a ski resort about 3 months after I started, and we all ended up on the same flight back home. So we were just laughing about how entertaining it would be if the site went down or something while we were in the air and didn't have access to it, or the plane crashed. I mean, it wouldn't be that entertaining, I guess, but well, maybe to you guys. But so it's a funny thing, just to think about how it is important to not only think about the fact that you may not be passionate about something forever. You may not have the time to do something forever, and empower other people to help you in that, in your projects, that type of thing. So that, I think that's the point that we're trying to make with the bus factor thing.
Well, I mean, ultimately, I think the. Why are you laughing at me? I'm making a valid point here.
I don't know yet. That's debatable.
No, I think ultimately, like when I submit a code contribution to a project, I want to learn something, right? I don't expect that I'm going to go in and do it exactly right or exactly the way that the maintainer expects me to do it the first time. You know, I want to learn something about the project, about open source kind of in general when I do that. And I think, you know, that's the thing is, for me, you're taking my mic away completely. That's probably not a bad idea.
No, I'm sorry. It's the like you're kind of moving around. I'll be your mic guy.
Okay, you can be my
I'm your
mic guy.
professional sound guy.
Okay, that sounds good. Again, I think it's just getting to a point where not only the maintainer but the person submitting the contribution understands, you know, what they're submitting, and like I said, I think it's just more of it's more of a difference in the resources that were available when I first started in programming. You know, Stack Overflow didn't exist. It was more like you had to really dig in. And nowadays, the answers are a little bit easier to come by, but I think you lose a little bit of understanding when you just kind of Google it and Stack Overflow it and say, oh, this should fix it. So I guess that's all I would say is just if you're going to do that, if you're going to look at, and I think Jeff mentioned this when we were in planning today. Sorry, I'm moving my head around now. Was, you know, by all means, use Stack Overflow. It's an important resource, but use it as a resource. Use it as an inspiration for your solution, and not as the, you know, necessarily the actual solution. Does that make sense? Am I saying words that make sense?
You're saying that that there's a disconnect between there's a problem, there's a solution on Stack Overflow, cut and paste, don't understand the problem.
Right. What I'm saying is,
So are you back to the loan, or are you trying to talk about the bus factor?
We're back on the law. So
we're back to killing you with a bus.
So I think I think the point you're trying to make is, you know, if you're going to use, like when you were learning to develop, or when I was learning to develop, there wasn't as much online activity. There wasn't as much information in something like Stack Overflow that you could go through and just easily find. It was a lot harder to find information, so you found it through asking peers, asking colleagues, you know, talking to people. And now we do have a lot more solutions out there, but it is important when you're going to use something that you found as a solution to a problem that you understand both the context of the problem the original solution was made for, and then how that solution solves the problem. So if it's not exactly 100% what your particular environment, your particular problem was, you have to be cognizant of that. And the story that I used earlier in the Stack Overflow driven development thing, that's what we called it, was because I once had a student worker who was working on a website that got a fair amount of traffic, not a ton, but a fair amount. And he wanted to add a feature in that would do the elapsed time since something happened, like, you know, the Twitter style where it's, you know, 2 minutes ago, 3 minutes ago, whatever. So he went and just, you know, Googled it really quickly, found a solution for that written in PHP on Stack Overflow, copied and pasted it, and put it into the site. And that was fine. You know, there wasn't any code review process there or whatever, so it just kind of went out. And he ended up taking the system down over the next, you know, six hours. The server that particular site was on just completely crashed. There wasn't any redundancy for it. The reason being, he filled up almost 80 gigs worth of logs because the solution he copied was expecting certain variables and cameras in my face. He was expecting certain variables, certain things to be set. So there were a bunch of notices going out. So whatever environment it was written for probably didn't have that turned on in production. This one did. So he filled up 80 gigs worth of log files in a couple hours. And so it's important to understand the solution. It's important to understand what you're putting into your code base. And I think that's more the point, is when you're looking for very quick answers, you often end up with a solution that you may not understand.
Well, that's exactly what I was talking about with Matt yesterday. That was the fact that we have now a generation that it grows up with instant satisfaction. I mean,
they are not used to watch TV anymore. They watch Netflix. It is on the click of the fill button. And you also have the instant satisfaction of, hey, I want to come up with a solution, so I paste my error in Google, come to Stack Overflow. I look at the first result that I see that looks like code. I paste it in. I forget about reading the rest of the page saying, hey, don't use that code that is mentioned here. So what you get is bad code solutions to fix a problem, but making actually the code even worse because nobody knows what's happening right there.
Which some of that instinct to, you get an error, you want to copy paste it, figure out. I mean, some of that is good. Like, we don't want to continually solve the same problems over and over and over again. But it is very important to understand the context of what you're using as a solution. I think that's a very good point.
Yes.
So thank you, Michelangelo. And now Ben Ramsey has the microphone.
Oh, no. Don't do it.
It's all over.
Taking over the show. Taking over the show. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay, thank you. Good night.
We're talking about Stack Overflow a lot.
No PHP,
But
What did you say anything?
Nothing.
no, I'm not. No, anyway, I'm just kind of curious. Like, how much has the PHP general mailing list been influenced your programming skills? Like, have you ever asked questions there? Do you mainly use Stack Overflow these days? How do the PHP mailing list factor into where you look for help these days?
Thank you for an actual question, by the way.
Yeah, that's good.
I don't know how to feel about that. But
We're kind of we're
I love that.
progressing.
What he meant to say, Sammy, was back when he was programming, he used to go to the mailing list.
you whippersnappers!
So first of all, get off Ben's lawn. No, I think the mailing list, I don't know. I think nowadays, I mean, from my perspective, I've never been horribly active on the mailing list, but I think it's so much easier to just Google stuff.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I mean, they're a resource, but I don't know. George's gonna try to take my mic away. As far as emailing like the PHP general mailing list, I've honestly never done that. It's always kind of been like.
Are you saying that if a problem wasn't solved by someone else before on Google, it's not worth solving by yourself?
Absolutely. No. I just, to be honest, you saying that there was a PHP general mailing list is, I don't know if I'm embarrassed to say this or whatever, but the first I've ever heard of a PHP general mailing list.
Okay, that's fine.
Well, he's not exactly like new generation.
No, he's old. He's old school. He's an old man. I get it.
All right, so as a fellow old man, I'd have to say, welcome to 1999.
Oh, wow.
I think
Wow.
the Stack Overflow driven development, I feel like ties into Ryan Weaver's. He has a talk about simple versus easy, and the idea that like simple and easy are very different concepts. They sound like the same thing, but easy is something you can cut and paste. But maybe it's not simple because behind the scenes it's doing something very complicated. Whereas simple is like you can see what's going on, but it's not necessarily easy because you have to like maintain the steps as it goes. And he actually, in his talk, he used the Facebook PHP SDK to different versions of it to show that, like, in one call, it was one line. It was very simple. You just simply paste it in your PHP script, and things happened. But behind the scenes, there was tons of complexity, lots of difficulty. Versus simple, which had many lines, but you could clearly see what was going on. I feel like maybe what your point is that people want a simple solution versus people want an easy solution versus a simple solution, because easy makes it like McDonald's hamburgers. You just eat it and you're good. But simple is like, I understand that calories in, calories out, exercise, and it's good. Is a simple understanding, but is very different story implementation.
Honestly, I don't know that it's even. I don't know if it's even that.
Simplicity, yes. People love simplicity. That says Dragon Me B at Twitter. Dragon B Twitter, man.
No, I don't even know if it's as much as that people.
The Dragon B has spoken.
Like I don't know that people necessarily understand the difference between simple and easy. Like
Well,
I think it's,
Ryan Weaver describes it in his talk. They should go to his talk.
right, but what I'm saying is like when there's a problem in your code base.
No, I get you. Yeah.
And again, we talked about this a little bit last night, and I think a lot of managers and bosses kind of contribute to this and feed into this is this idea of we need this fixed immediately, right now. We don't care. Sorry, I can't do the mic thing tonight. I'm a little drunk. Thank you.
Admitting it is the first step.
Yeah, it is the first step. I'm gonna have some more cracking.
Is that Grumpy's Kraken?
I hope so.
I heard
No, I don't think it is. No, the idea that they don't really understand what's simple versus easy. That their only directive is get it fixed right now. We don't really care how you get it fixed. Just get it fixed so that we can roll out this next version or this update or whatever it is. And so I think, as managers, as bosses, as people that are in charge of kind of, demanding what kind of code we get from people, taking a little bit of extra time to say, let's make sure not only that this works, that we fix this, but that it's a quality solution. Understanding that difference between simple and easy and not just fixed or not fixed, I think goes a long way to, ensuring that those solutions survive, new features, new bug fixes, things like that, and that they're not just hack jobs.
And how does that tie into bigger projects like Composer or PHP Unit? Anything that every PHP unit. I'm trying to slow down my speech because I talk way too fast. PHP developer. I know. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Here, have some of this.
So how does that tie into like the bigger projects? Like when there's a lot of code, right? It's hard to understand everything that's going on. And like I get a bug, I fix this one little tiny problem that regulates this tiny little section of code. Is that okay to just sort of submit a pull request to like, I don't understand what the rest of the code is doing, but this tiny context is definitely fixed. How does that influence the rest of the project? I have no idea. Do you have any thoughts on that, Jordy?
Well, so obviously testing is the obvious answer to this problem is have tests for everything. But let's be real, like you cannot test everything. Like in every, large projects tend to have edge cases that you might not have tests for, and it sucks. But that's just the reality. So yeah, that tends to be a problem for sure. Like that people send a pull request and they don't realize it's breaking stuff because they tested it and for them it works, but might break like a lot of other people's days. So,
but what if it doesn't necessarily break it, but it just influences other parts of the code in a negative way? As a project maintainer, you might know. I'm sorry?
Is that not breaking?
Non-breaking?
No, is that not breaking? Like influencing in a bad way?
Maybe like it's just maybe if you're trying to implement a very specific design pattern, or if you're trying to like embrace the domain-specific language of whatever it is that you're doing, and somebody submits something that's like completely outside of that, or even a little outside of that, as a project maintainer, how do you kind of like push that in the right direction?
Not sure I get the question in the context of simple easy, but
I think I just made a tangent. That's
okay, just checking. Well, I mean, I guess you just have to review it and then like communicate this in a way, which I tend to be fairly bad at. I'd rather like fix it myself, but just we have an answer.
Oh, yeah,
Larry Garfield.
Larry. Welcome back, Larry.
Drupal 8, everybody. Oh wait, no, wait, 7.
Drupal 8.
8 or 7?
Drupal 8 in the house.
Then no cake yet.
Is that a verb?
Not cake PHP. It says Dragon Bee.
So on simple versus easy, Ryan talks about that. I've talked about that. It actually originates with I'm sitting up my head. Hi.
Derek is doing a series of pictures of people's heads.
Yes.
The tops of people's heads.
Up a street map, you know that.
Casey, navigate.
So simple versus easy originates with Rich Hickey. It's a creator of Closure. Talk he gave about 3 years ago. I highly recommend it to everyone. Just Google simple made easy. It should be one of the first things to come up. But a lot of it is, the distinction it makes there is between something is simple if it has few moving parts. It's easy if it is near at hand. So something is easy if it's familiar, which doesn't mean it's actually simple. The opposite of simple is complex.
Easy is an intrinsic quality of something.
Although simple is an intrinsic quality.
No, easy is an intrinsic quality. You can simplify something. There's no word in the English language to easify something. It is as hard or as easy as it is.
But the ease of something, and this is the point that Hickey makes, is relative to the person doing it. How complex something is, I can calculate like its cyclomatic complexity or its number of dependencies. That's simplicity.
Okay.
How easy something is, Drupal 7 is really easy for someone who's used to using Drupal 7. For someone who's used to Zen Framework, it's really hard because of their different perspective. So, on the simple versus easy, if a code base is very simple, i.e. loosely coupled, no pun intended.
No pun taken.
This isn't Death Hell?
Get out, get out, get out.
So if the code is well decoupled, well factored, explicit dependencies, and so on and so on, then the odds of any one random patch impacting large parts of the code base are much lower. That's the point. That's why you need to take the step and make the effort to keep your code base simple. Even if it's a large, involved code base, taking the time to keep the code simple means that any individual pull request from any random contributor is far less likely to end up breaking everything, test or not. So that's really where that comes in. And that's where taking the effort to keep your code simple means you can, I'll just add this new feature, because it's not going to spider out through the entire system. That's really where the benefit of focusing on code quality comes in, is that it allows you to pivot like that.
Indeed.
Good word, good word.
Good word. It's coming. We're about an hour and 8 minutes and 43 seconds into this recording.
Roughly an hour.
We don't want we're not using 3 equal statements here. But what I would like to wrap this up really quickly. Actually, before we wrap it up, oh, go ahead.
I had to make a semi.
Absolutely.
So speaking of posters, so we did get a poster from our good friend Kevin Bruce. Derek's gonna model
that. Bruce. Bruce.
And were there any rules?
You need a trivia question.
Oh, Matt knows.
Yes.
So
so we would like to. What we'd like to do is raffle off this poster.
Could you describe
not raffle it, but trivia it off? I guess.
Could you describe the poster to the people who are listening in their cars?
So basically, it's a X-Files poster with the caveat of, I want to believe my database won't crash.
And there's a flying.
And there's a flying
database. Hashtag Mongo.
Hashtag Mongo. And
Thanks,
so
Jeremy
the
McCullough.
idea is, I guess, somebody probably a little bit more sober than me should come up with a PhD question to ask, and then the person who answers the question will be the new proud owner of this X-Files flying database
I feel like
poster.
Derek should finally say something.
So, what's that?
I feel like Derek should finally say something.
Well,
Yeah.
Ben has a question, I think. So why don't we ask?
Ben said too much.
Yeah, Ben's like, Derek, you have a question.
I'd like to ask a question, but nobody will know the answer.
Okay, well that's
ask
not
one
going
and
to work.
someone knows the answer.
That's not
Never
going to
mind,
work.
never mind. I won't ask my question.
Jordy, do you have a question? Why don't you ask your, maybe a composer
No.
or a PhD? Or
I kind of felt like at this point, okay.
just ask
Jeremy
a
has a
question.
question. That can't go wrong.
No, that can never go wrong. Jeremy, why don't you come up here? Oh,
Derek's got a question.
Derek's got one. Let's see.
How old is PHP?
Oh, that's not a good question.
Check and be on Twitter.
Anybody besides.
I decided the correct answer.
22 years?
Why don't we, let's go. Well, we got Jake over here in the corner.
20 years?
Incorrect.
What do you write?
Let's go.
Components?
Right over here. 17.
Incorrect.
What's that? Come on. Dragon Man.
I like how you randomly selected.
I'm just like pointing around.
22.
So I think we need a rough answer, like to the second.
We got.
Push closer.
Let's come up. Why don't we come up with a question that has an answer?
has an answer.
That's Michelangelo.
What's the second
Michelangelo.
On June 8th,
There you go.
So
One more time.
on June 8th, it will be 20 years.
Okay, that sounds correct.
On June 8th,
That sounds correct. You're not 100%.
No, he's correct. It is
Michelangelo, Van
There we
Damme,
go.
gets the poster.
He's sober.
We'll take this one.
Yeah, it's no
and there is a third party who validates that. Yes.
He's sober like the rest of us.
Yes.
I'm not sober like the rest of you.
I know, me too.
So now that the awesome partying has been raffled off, is that a thing? I've got a question actually because none of us really know what this is. Does anybody? Yes, Jordy. This question's for you.
Go, Jordy.
Pickle.
Oh.
Not just something you eat.
Heckle.
No.
We're
We're not talking about
straight
pickle.
pickle here,
Okay,
homie.
before
We're not young people talking.
Oh,
Okay.
you're talking about
before we talk about peckle
hearsay?
/ pickle, not pickle.
Yeah.
It's not. So if you're already familiar with pickle, also known as peckle for people who don't pronounce it like the logo, which is pickles, a pickle.
Oh my God.
This is something different. This is something that
We're
I
here
feel
to
like
clarify this.
this is all a clarification. There is a project called
So-
Pickle, literally pickle,
Yeah.
with an I,
And,
not an
and
E.
you find yourself in a pickle because none of you has any clue what the
Exactly,
project
and we don't know what it is. We know it's probably going to impact PHP in a big way.
is. Yeah.
Jordy, what's
why
up
we're
with
here.
pickle? What's it going to do for
2
us?
minutes rundown.
1 minute 47 seconds.
One. Okay.
Better hurry.
Time it.
It's timing right now.
So it's like a new extension installer for PHP extensions that it works on Linux and on Windows, which is quite nice. And it doesn't require anything on Windows like to compile, so you get like DLLs on Windows. On Linux, you'll also just get binaries, and like down the line, it should support as well like RPM and deb. And it's right now it's in slowly beta. Within
The Dev Hell Podcast is
a
here.
while ago.
The grumpy
Chris Hart
programmers
just
in the
walked in.
building.
And it's being escorted out by Derek Redmond.
And our security has taken care of the intrusion. Thank you, Derek.
We were talking about like cutting edge technology in PHP,
Yeah.
and Grumpy just
He just
ruined
walked in. Hi, Chris.
Yeah, that's a less grand entrance. So anyway, where was I?
So is it
You were saying
Composer
No,
for
so
PHP
the-
extensions?
So right now, yeah, so it's an installer for PHP extensions. That's the short version, but it's coming in beta slowly, and it's like once in a few months, if everything goes well, we should have it integrated in Composer, so that you can just require extensions and install them like any other package.
So you're saying that if I want the mcrypt library because it complains on my Mac because that's not installed by default, I need mcrypt to run. It's not, because it's not maintained. I think the Mac OS people were like, I'm not going to put that in PHP. So it's not. The extension isn't loaded into PHP. So if I needed the mcrypt library on my Mac, I could use the pickle library to pull it in.
So Derek just
Jordy is
admitted to
distracted.
having written the mcrypt library.
No, the library, the extension.
And yeah, the
Derek
extension, and then
Redmond's wrote-
abandoning it.
No, the library got abandoned.
Oh.
The library, mcrypt is no
Okay.
longer maintained.
Oh, but so it's a library. I'm sorry. So for the confusion, you may
the
now
first thing
move
I did.
away.
No, it's actually the first thing I contributed to PHP.
All right.
The first thing Derek Redmond's contributed to PHP was a wrapper for the mcrypt library.
Or a
See
fixed
that?
version of the
It was a what? No, I'm just
So-
for a second.
I have no idea what's going on.
Thank
here.
you, Derek, for your contribution of the library.
No,
Okay.
Wrapper, sorry.
So what the question is, if I needed the mcrypt library, I could just use pickle to pull it in. Is that right?
Theoretically, yes.
Okay.
I'm not sure if this applies to mcrypt or only like third-party libraries, like extensions. But I do believe yes.
Any extension in PHP, basically.
Yes.
So
let's
what?
say yes to simplify and hopefully employ.
So how does I think in a couple of PHP roundtables ago we mentioned this pickle project, and Joe Watkins was talking about like, well, compiled languages is much different than PHP scripting languages because you have to worry about like what CPU you're on and all this kind of stuff. How does Pickle figure out what CPU are like? How does the compiled language is so different? Like, how does it figure out all those problems?
So that's the part where I really don't know because I didn't actually implement any of that stuff. I just know it somehow works. So,
Magic.
No, so I mean, I know that on Windows, the Microsoft guys have built servers, so they will produce like DLLs for all the different platforms. On Linux, I guess they will use a deb if available, and if not, we'll just like compile it, which is like the existing packer would do that, right? Like you just download the source and then you run like this PHPI's thing.
Magic.
Yeah.
Well, so if I were to just propose a timeline here, when do you think that Pickle might be something that people could start using in actual production?
Hopefully this year, sometime.
Sometimes this year? So by the end of 2015? Maybe.
I don't see why
Question
not,
mark.
but you know, live.
Live.
You never know.
Hashtag live. Awesome. Well, I mean, we've been recording for an hour and 17 minutes and 56 seconds. So we, I think, should start wrapping it up. And in the PHP Roundtable, there's a segment called the Developer Shoutout. And that's where we recognize a developer for doing amazing things in the community. There's so many amazing PHP contributors here. Like, I'm looking at this whole audience here, and I'm like, every one of you deserves a developer shoutout.
Well, you
And this guy too.
You're not going to get it, but you can all get a thumbs up. So thank you.
Absolutely. And some of you have been nominated, including Michelangelo Van Dam over here, who's been nominated for the Developer Shoutout. So all of you will probably be getting Developer Shoutouts in future PHP Roundtables. But for this particular episode, I'd like to also ask the panel, like, oh, who would you like to nominate for the Developer Shoutout on this episode? And for this episode, because it sort of had like a PSR 7,
PSR 7.
sort of afterglow to it. There's actually two people in here who have played around with that, and that's Larry Garfield and Bo Simonson. And so, Larry, hold off on your developer shout out because Bo was nominated for this one. Bo Simonson. He was totally nominated for the developer shout out. And this means that he's going to be getting a $50 Amazon gift certificate and a special thank you note handwritten by me, which I have horrible penmanship, so I apologize in advance. But this is sponsored by Laracast. Jeffrey Way does this awesome website, laracast.com. He describes how to do really amazing things on PHP. Anything you want to do on PHP, learn how to do some really cool stuff. He spends the PHP Roundtable $100 a month to actually recognize developers in the community with $50 Amazon gift cards. So thank you, Bo, for your contributions to the community in general. Absolutely. And Sculpin, the static site generator, which, by the way, I have questions for you after the show. Like,
Go Sculpin.
Go Sculpin.
Open, yeah.
And that podcast,
Which
excellent
one?
job. That podcast.
Which one?
Oh,
Which
that one.
podcast?
That podcast.
Oh, that one.
Another PHP podcast.
Yeah.
Excellent. I listen to it. I'm a commute. So thank you for everything you do for the community. And we'll be recognizing you. I'll get your address later. I don't have the gift card with me right here.
Checks in the mail.
And finally, it's all you. Outro. Jeff, take it out. I'm done. Mic drop.
All right. Thank you. I want to say thank you to our participants, the silent Yitz code rap out there. Thank you very much.
He was very silent.
Thank you also to Ben Ramsey.
He just wanted to
He hasn't
sit
been
at the
drinking
table.
Now I've been a good sport.
He
Been
has
a
a
horrible sport.
Thank you, Ben. We love you. We love you, Ben.
Seriously, I don't really. Okay, so
I hate you all.
I want to thank Sammy for
Get off his
this
lawn.
matchup.
I don't hate Jordy. I love Jordy.
It's been a lot of fun, and all of you for attending. Thank you very much.
All right, yeah.
And last but not least, no thank you to Derek.
He was just a complete destruction.
Yeah.
So that is.
Last vote.
I don't like Derek's T-shirt actually.
Thank you for that information. Okay, so that is episode 3 of Loose Couple Podcast. Thank you very much for listening. We'll see you next time.
Later.
/ PHP Roundtable.
Good work, gentlemen.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got through.